Politics lead today, President Biden would not commit to withdrawing all U.S. troops from Afghanistan by May 1st under a deal struck by President Trump with the Taliban.
It's going to be hard to meet the May 1 deadline. Just in terms of tactical reasons, it's hard to get those troops out. We've been meeting with our allies, those other nations that have NATO allies who have troops in Afghanistan as well. And if we leave, we're going to do so in a safe and orderly way.
Do you believe, though, it's possible we could have troops there next year?
I can't picture that being the case.
Joining us now to discuss, Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois is an Air Force pilot who served in Iraq and Afghanistan, currently serves in the Air National Guard. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. You criticized President Trump when he announced his decision to withdraw U.S. troops from Afghanistan. What's your take on President Biden's remarks? He didn't commit to May 1st, but he seemed to suggest U.S. troops will be gone by next year.
Yeah, hey, Jake, I think it's a difficult decision, and I think it's going to be a difficult thing to talk about because, frankly, I think they need to stay. I think it would probably behoove the president to just say, look, we're going to leave when we can under conditions of peace once the Taliban agree and actually follow through to their agreement. But, you know, the fact is the 2,500 troops there are projecting some combat power, training, stiffening the spine of the Afghan people who want us there. And there's 5,000 NATO soldiers. So I think he certainly implied that he would be out this year. I just have a hard time actually seeing that occurring. And I wish he'd just kind of take that bull by the horns and tell the American people why. I think the American people would certainly be supportive if they heard the right reasons.
Well, obviously, Biden has to weigh this decision to withdraw with the prospects of a Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. And you obviously fear that would make the U.S. less safe. But what about the counter argument that, like, we can't be there forever unless you actually think that Afghanistan should be like our bases in Germany or Japan or Korea?
Yeah, look, I mean, I agree we can't be there forever. And I think a real disservice was done by these people that call Afghanistan a forever war. I mean, the reality is even the prior president said it. It's not a war. It's a peacekeeping mission. Well, we have peacekeepers still in Kosovo. And so while we'd love to have a better situation there, the reality is America's presence and NATO's presence is what stiffens the spine of the Afghan forces to do the bulk of the fighting. The second we leave, if that government collapses, which would be fairly likely when we left, not only would you have a Taliban takeover, you'd have a safe haven for terrorist groups to organize and plan, which is what they desperately want, not to mention all the rare earth minerals there that the Chinese would love to exploit. So, yeah, it's not the best situation, but let's think about it. There's not 150,000 American troops there. This is exactly the kind of 21st century fight where we're enabling and emboldening friendly forces to do the fighting on our behalf.
And we have a similar situation, although with more forces than that, in South Korea. President Biden was also asked about North Korea, the fact that North Korea launched 2 ballistic missiles yesterday, which was its second weapons test in less than a week. Take a listen.
There will be responses if they choose to escalate. We will respond accordingly. But I'm also prepared for some form of diplomacy, but it has to be conditioned upon the end result of denuclearization.
This seems much more in alignment with your kind of view of North Korea than what Trump attempted.
Yeah, I think this is spot on. I mean, the reality is it's going to be a diplomatic solution. Nobody wants a war on the Korean Peninsula, not North Korea, of course, not us. It's going to take Chinese pressure, Russian pressure, American pressure, allied pressure to get to that denuclearization. But I think the president is right in his kind of cautious approach, making it clear that, you know, look, we will respond if you provoke us, but we don't seek war and you shouldn't either. It's very different than going to the DMZ, jumping over in a, gallop with Kim Jong-un and acting like a nice handshake and a smile is going to solve that problem. It actually didn't. In fact, I think it made it quite worse, and it made Kim Jong-un, frankly, a player on the world stage that he doesn't deserve.
It also made him, I think, eager for attention, which might be the reason we've seen these missile tests. The president is obviously facing multiple crises right now, not just Afghanistan and North Korea, but also at the border, coronavirus, gun violence. So far, his agenda has gotten little support from Republicans. Do you think there is room where you could work with President Biden and the Democrats on any of these issues? For instance, let's say infrastructure.
Yeah, certainly. What I understand about the infrastructure bill that's coming goes way beyond infrastructure, which to me is disappointing. I think there's a number of Republicans that would love to do an infrastructure bill, talk about how to pay for it. I think once you go into we're just going to raise corporate tax rates, that's going to be tough because right now infrastructure is funded by the gas tax. So we have to have a discussion about that. Using the roads you're driving on or paying for the roads you're driving on. We're willing to do it. But if it now gets lumped with all this other kind of wish list, there's no doubt there can't be bipartisanship. And I think it's inauthentic and ungenuine then to say, boy, we have no Republicans on this, because it's just literally no attempt to gain Republicans. You can try to ram it through yourself. That's totally your right. But if you want bipartisanship, I think there's a number of us that are willing to have a serious engagement on some of these issues.
Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, thanks so much. Good to see you again.
You too, Jake.